Hi, and welcome to Business Link, the Lincoln Chamber's podcast to talk about business activities here in Lincoln. I'm Jason Ball, the president and CEO of the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, and we are here today in the AOI podcast studio at the Lincoln Chamber, and I am so excited to be joined by two of the leaders from Hampton Enterprises, Scott Lockard and Michelle Keogh. Scott, Michelle, welcome today. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for inviting us.
So it's a big year for this company. I think many people that have been engaged in the business community will recognize Hampton Enterprises and what they do. We'll talk more about that, but they have been in business in Lincoln for 75 years. Congratulations on such a milestone. That's a huge deal.
That's exciting.
Absolutely. Yep.
So we're gonna talk today about some of their past, some of the future in Lincoln, their growth as a company. But Scott, Michelle, I wanted to start out and just ask you both, can you tell people, for folks that are maybe less familiar than we get to be, tell us about Hampton as a company, what you do here in town, areas that you compete in, and your leadership team at the company.
So I lead the properties division of Hampton. I've been with Hampton for 22 years. We are a commercial developer.
Yep.
We do property management, leasing, and we have our own landscape lawn crew
Yep.
that are our own department. We have developed only within Lincoln. We have 8 current developments, and we've purchased a new one that we're going to hopefully kick off soon at 70th and Yankee Hill.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I run the construction side, commercial construction. So we build anything from retail, offices, schools, medical. I mean, you name it, commercial, we build it. I've been at Hampton for just over 15 years and was a project manager for a good portion of my time, and then been running construction for the past 8 years or so.
Yeah, yeah. Now, Hampton, again, very familiar name in the business community, and especially after being around for 75 years, it's a company that people really identify with Lincoln's growth. It's been a great story, but tell us a little bit about how did Hampton begin 75 years ago? How's that company evolved in that time? I'm sure a lot has changed in 75 years of business.
Yeah, it has. I mean, it started with humble beginnings. I mean, Joe Hampton moved to Lincoln as an electrician, and started by building a house for himself. Ended up, as he got it finished, somebody really enjoyed that house. They decided to purchase it from him, so he built another, and then kind of got into home building. Then on the commercial side
Yes. So he ended up buying a building that was half done, needed to help the builder out, and
Yeah.
took it over. And I think that's what kicked off our commercial development world. And the great thing about Hampton, too, is having our own general contracting, and to be able to build our own helps us really be able to manage the quality, the timelines, and be able to take pride on both sides that, we are building in Lincoln and building into the community.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Joe just took off from there, and just, Joe was a person that was very humble, always took advice from other community leaders in Lincoln, and really appreciated those relationships, and just wanted to continue to raise his family here in Lincoln and just really give back to the community.
You both bring up Joe in that story, and he's so central, on the founding of the company and its maturation through the years. I think many people, myself included, when I was a junior chamber staff member, I very clearly recall Joe, and he's been very involved in the Chamber of Commerce. He was involved in leadership with the city in so many ways. Tell us just a couple memories that you have of Joe and his leadership approach to how the community evolved.
Well, Joe always had a phrase, he didn't want to give a hand out, he'd give a hand up.
Yeah.
And I think that was his mentality, was helping others, taking care of them, doing his part, to impact the city. Even as we build buildings, we don't look at it as a project that we have. We look at it as a relationship that we want to build and deliver something that is better than they expected. And mostly through the process, as we take care of them, as we handle challenges, issues. I mean, they pop up all the time, but how we treat them, how we handle them, starts with Joe's philosophy and making sure that we have a satisfied customer at the end of the day. And for Joe to be, on the city council, several boards, airport authority, ran for mayor, he cared about Lincoln. He loved Lincoln. And we don't just work in Lincoln anymore. We work all across the state of Nebraska. We have a project that's getting ready to start in Omaha. We built schools in Hastings, Kearney, Holdridge, retail across the state of Nebraska. We got a job in North Platte right now. But everywhere we go, we look for how can we impact that community? How can we make sure that we do our best job? How do we help and work with the local subcontractors? Because sometimes that's new relationships for us. And again, it starts with Joe's philosophy and continuing that forward.
That's such a great story to tell. He was so involved, and you think of what the city would have looked like back in 1948 compared to what it is now. Joe and Hampton Enterprises as a whole company touched so many pieces of that. So I'm curious to know, are there particular projects or maybe moments or achievements that the company has had that you're particularly proud of as you look back over 75 years of business?
Scott and I were talking about that today, and it's hard because for Hampton, it's really about relationships.
Yeah.
And it's so, a small tenant versus a really large tenant, it's really hard to say one stands out more than the other. I mean, we do have some projects that I think we would agree make some statements in the city.
Yeah.
Having the first gold LEED building in our development. So there are some of those, but I think for us, it's really about relationships. And so being able to talk about those relationships probably stands out more than the project itself does.
I think that's a great answer. I've literally asked you which one of your children do you prefer best, right?
I have 3 girls. I might give you a pick on that. So. Kidding.
I'm sorry, Scott, I jumped in though. Do you have any thoughts in addition to the great relationships built?
Same thing as Michelle said, every project that we do is impactful. And, certain projects have more visual impacts as we work on them. I think a center point that we just are in the process of finishing up, that's going to be a massive impact gratefully for our city when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to mental health. We're going to look back 5-10 years from now and say, wow, that really changed things in Lincoln. So to be a part of that and have a long-standing relationship is great. But that's one project, and looking at, even the Pinnacle Bank Arena, most people don't know that we actually first of all, even partnered with Mortensen on it, that we are a joint venture. Second of all, we did all the finished carpentry on that project. I have myself, I was down there for the full 2 years. I have 2 project managers that were down there for the full 2 years, and some other guys that worked on site from time to time. So we have people that were involved in it. But is that more impactful than the daycare that we just opened up? No. Because that daycare is a business that is impacting so many people here in town. And to see the faces of the 2 owners of that daycare, they're proud of their business and they want to see that succeed. And the kids that are going to daycare every day there, they have a safe place, it's clean, it looks great, it's phenomenal. And we did that, So, and that happens to be a building that we also own. So it's a double win for Hampton because we can continue to take care of them while they're in their space. So I remember a school that we built a few years ago, and we asked one of the guys that we were working with, we said, hey, what's the one thing you want to have happen in this facility? And he goes, I want kids, when they walk in here, I want their parents to have to drag them out of here because they love that facility so much. And what it does when you ask questions like that on the front end is it reminds you, hey, this just isn't a building. That there are people who are going to use this building. And so as we build it, as we construct it, have them in mind. And that forces us to build those relationships. And again, a different school project we did is a very tough remodel job. We, at the end of the project, all the teachers took a Hampton hard hat and they signed it thanking us for their work, and had letters from the students thanking us for their work, turning their school into a great facility. And, you realize you made impacts at that point. And several nonprofits we work with, we're so budget conscious with them because we know every dollar matters on that project, but yet they have an end goal. And everybody who donated to that facility for them, they want to get the best value out of it. And it's not just about getting it done. It's making sure it lasts and it's beautiful and they're proud. And time and time again, we can go down a whole list of stories of just relationships that we've been able to develop, and not just us developing them, Joe developing them, our employees developing them, and continuing them on for the next generation.
I think that speaks to the amazing company culture that you clearly have. And again, I think obviously that's been greatly informed by the founding of the company. It sort of has that it's a large enterprise now, but it's sort of has that small business mentality of making sure you pay attention to those small details and really value that relationship as the core of how you go about business. And I get excited about that. I think that's a beautiful thing. So, we've talked about some of those impacts throughout the city. We've talked about the relationships. I'd just love to hear you, both respond to, why do you think Lincoln has been a place where a company like a Hampton, has been able to find success and grow for 75 years now? No matter where you are in the nation, 75 years in business is a huge milestone.
Absolutely.
So why was Lincoln a place that played a role in Hampton's evolution?
I think when Joe ended up here, he just felt that it was a great community first to have a career, but really to raise his family. He fell in love with Lincoln, and at that point he just felt like this is the place for my company to grow. And Joe didn't build the company for himself. He would always say that it was for the employees to flourish, to provide jobs to. And I think that he felt Lincoln was so welcoming to him. And like I said, business leaders really helping him, that he was just really loved the city, what it gave back to him, the opportunity it gave to so many of our employees to come here too. So I think that was, one of the reasons that he really felt Lincoln was the right place for him.
Yeah. That's great.
We've been talking about relationships as a part of our company for decades now. And several other people are now also using that same phrase, which is good. It's very important to build relationships, but it is relationships that actually built the company. And we have tenants that have been there for 30, 40 years, and employees that have been there for 20, 30, 40 years, or 38, I should say. But that's unheard of, that's rare. Yes, there are some places like that, but it's rare. And it starts with understanding who you are first and what you want to deliver, and then being true. And Lincoln's a great town. I grew up in Stella, Nebraska, 225 people. To me, Lincoln is an overgrown small town. The best thing about small towns is you can build those relationships, and Lincoln is a relationship town. I used to hate this town when I was in college because I thought Omaha was phenomenal. You couldn't pay me enough money to live in Omaha right now. I love Lincoln. It's a great town.
Heard it on the podcast first.
You can try. No, just kidding. Just kidding. But no, I love Lincoln. I love being a part of the community, and to have an impact myself and to raise my family here. It's phenomenal.
I have a similar story. I come from rural Nebraska, came here, thrilled to be part of Lincoln. I've lived in more urban areas, and it is just a comfortable place to live for people that are looking for the type of life and lifestyle that Lincoln really offers. And I get excited for young people that are here because it's a place where someone who's still early in their career can get really involved and again, meet influencers like Joe, and make an impact on the community. So, well, we've talked a lot about the history of the company and where you're at now. Would love to hear anything you could share about, what's next for Hampton Enterprises as a company as it continues to evolve. Like, what do you see in the next 75 years for this organization?
Our next milestone date's 100. So. Michelle probably will be retired by then.
Yeah, hopefully.
Probably. I will probably be retiring around that time frame. But no, there's a lot left for us to do. We have about 900,000 square foot of commercial property that's currently built out and leased out. We can build roughly another 500,000. And so we're continuing to grow the company, develop our property, continue to look for construction projects across the state of Nebraska and build in other communities as well, building relationships as we do it. And, we have a lot of repeat customers because of how we do our business. And anybody can build a building, anybody can hire a subcontractor, but the way you do it is what stands out and matters. And that starts with relationship. So we'll continue to build across Lincoln, across Nebraska, and then continue to develop our buildings and properties. And
Yeah, I think for the property side, we've always felt like you need to live in the community to really manage and build those relationships. So I think Hampton will always be in Nebraska and not be a company that spreads out through many states. I think it will always, even in the future, really be focused on just Nebraska.
Yeah.
It's just what fits our model and our company.
That's exciting. Well, a couple things that I want to make sure we share with everybody who's hearing this today. First of all, if you want to find out more about the company, whether it's the history or what they're doing right now, you can look them up online at hampton1.com, and that's Hampton, the number one. .com. And then we're thrilled as the chamber. We get to do the thing chambers love to do the most, right? Is celebrate a ribbon cutting. And often those things are for things that are new. Here we're celebrating a milestone, and when you guys first reached out to us to talk about that, our team was so excited to be a small part of celebrating this big achievement of the company. And so we're going to be able to do that ribbon cutting here coming up on May 16th. It's going to happen between 3:30 and 6 o'clock at your offices there. It's just going to be a really, really important event, I think a meaningful event, and we're just honored to be a part of this milestone with you guys. So thank you for that opportunity.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
So everyone, again, we're celebrating 75 years in business for a Lincoln company, Hampton Enterprises. Scott, Michelle, thank you so much for being part of the podcast today. This has been the Business Link podcast from the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce in the AOI podcast studio. I'm Jason Ball, President and CEO, and we will see you on the next episode.